Hey YouTube.
What's up?
Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a character mod for Super Mario Kart on the SNES. As you can see, the final product is going to look something like this. But before we even get into it, I need to say a few things. Number one, I don't completely know what I'm doing when it comes to this stuff. When I make these mods, I'm just doing the best I can. So the methods that I use in this video might not be the most efficient. It's just the way I did it. If you know what you're doing, feel free to improvise. Number two, this video will have some limitations. We'll be making a simple character mod. This includes a full rotation sprite of the character that shows up on the title screen, character select screen, and also in game 2, of course. It'll work in both GP mode and time trials, but like I said, there are some things I just don't know how to do. For example, the character portraits when you finish your race will still be the default ones, and also the end victory screen will just be your character's face over the default bodies. So yeah, it could be kind of creepy. Or kind of sexy. Yeah. And lastly, I just want to say, this process may be a little bit time consuming. Depending on how much time you want to put into it, it might take a couple days. If you plan on adding 8 whole characters, I hope you have a lot of free time on your hands because it's going to take a while. I only made 1 character, and the process pretty much took me 2 whole days, which included making the actual character sprites and also learning how to use the various programs you'll see in this video. So as long as you have a little bit of patience and time, everything should go fine. So yeah, with all that out of the way, let's get into the video. Okay, so let's begin with the basics. You'll need a few different things before we begin the process. You'll need a PC, get a ROM file of Super Mario Kart, I don't care how you get it, you just need one. You'll need a sprite editor or an app that lets you make digital art. So a lot of people use things like Sprite, which is a program that specifically focuses on making pixel art and sprites. I just use Procreate, which is a generic digital art app. But if you make the canvas really small, it actually works really well for making sprites. So that's what I did. At the end of the day, you can probably use any art app you want. I'm sure even Microsoft Paint would work. You'll need an SNES emulator, of course, to actually play the game. If you want a good reference of what you'll be creating, you can go to the Spiders resource and download a sprite sheet of the Super Mario Kart drivers. This is going to work really well as a template for us. You're going to need Tile Molester, which is a program that lets you modify the actual sprites within an SNES game. And lastly, a program called Epic Edit, which is an intuitive track editor that's actually pretty fun to use, though we'll only be using it in this video to change the name of the driver we'll be making. Now that we have all of that stuff downloaded, we can actually get into making the mod itself. Sorry for taking so long. So the first thing that I actually did was make art for the character itself. I opened up a blank canvas and imported in a character sprite sheet. Yoshi was my template of choice, so I began editing his sprites. I've got a couple of important tips though to make your sprites come out the best. For one, try to use the official Super Mario Kart driver color schemes. You can see I used a decent amount of colors for coloring and shading, but this was kind of a mistake since not all that detail is actually going to show up in game. Here's a guide of all the driver palettes, and stick to one driver's color scheme. So for example, even though I'm drawing over Yoshi, I ended up using Koopa Troopa as my replacement driver, and as a result, I was limited to his color palette, which means that I could only use these shades of beige and green. Some characters have different color palettes, so make sure to choose the one that fits your character the best. For example, if you're going to make a mod of a character that has a lot of yellow and red but no blue, I'd recommend using Bowser's color scheme. Another tip I want to say is try to keep the new sprites the same size as the original sprites, or else they might not fit into the program when we're actually modifying the in-game sprites. You can see I had to remove some detail from my sprites because they were just too tall to fit in. And one last thing, some sprites must be symmetrical. This includes the front-facing and back-facing sprites, and also the look-back and celebration sprites only need to be heads, as the game uses data from other sprites to fill out the bottom. With all that said now, you can go ahead and begin making your sprites. At the end of the day, how much you want to do is up to you. In my opinion, the most important sprites to make are all of the front-facing ones, as you see those in the beginning of every race, and the 12 main ones right here. You gotta do these. Pretty much this is the baseline of what you have to do. You should also do these 4 at the top. They're seen in the main races, just not as often. Here are a couple of optional ones to do too. You'll see all of these back sprites when you get 2nd to 4th place. So if you suck ass at the game like me and you don't get first every race, you should also do these. All of these sprites are mostly used viewing CPUs at long distances, and also when you get hit by a mini mushroom. They're not super important if you only plan to play as your custom character and never have them as a CPU, but if you plan on having your character be a CPU, or you're planning on making multiple character mods, then you should do these sprites. And one last thing is that this set of sprites are used for characters on the minimap. Here's a tip. I just took the original 12 sprites I made and shrunk them down, and then cleaned up the blurriness a bit to save some time. rather than making 12 brand new sprites just to be on the minimap. And honestly, it looks fine. And you don't need to make the celebrations because again, I don't know how to change them. Okay, hopefully you got all that. I know it was a lot of information, but if you just follow these restrictions, your character should come out looking the best it can. So now, just put all of your sprites onto a sprite sheet like this, and then add a background color that contrasts with the color of your character's sprite. I feel like pink works the best for me because that stands out a lot, but if you're using Peach's color scheme, maybe use purple or light green instead. Export the image and send it over to your computer, and that's it. We're done with the tedious part. Just kidding. It's all tedious. Okay, so now that we have a sprite sheet, we can finally modify the game's files and import our character into the game itself. First thing you want to do is make a bunch of copies of your ROM. Don't skip this step. The game takes up such little storage on your computer that if you literally had 100 extra copies of your ROM, it wouldn't even be close to a single gigabyte of storage. So I made 7 copies of my ROM just in case, and I'd recommend making a similar number too, because when we're finished with the project, you can just delete the extra copies. But if you mess up a ROM and save it without a backup, you'll be screwed. So just make a few copies, you know. Next, let's actually open Tile Molester. Now, if you've played Minecraft with Optifine, this won't be a problem for you, but if you have no idea what I just said, then listen to this. You're gonna need Java to open Tile Molester. So if you don't have Java installed, install that. I'll put a link to that in the description. Open the program with Java. I was having an issue though, where the program wouldn't open because I was missing a language folder and also an XML and DDT file. I think I had a language folder since I could see it on my screen, but I needed to download the XML and DDT files from the internet. Again, I put a link to that in the description if you had the same issue as me. Download these files off of GitHub and then put them into your System32 folder. And with that, the program should open. If you have any other issues, just see what the error code is and just try to see if there's a solution online. You know, you can always Google for help. That's what I did to find the XML and DDT file. And if you can't find anything on Google, try to just join a Super Mario Kart modding Discord server. I'm sure they'll be glad to help you with the process because, you know, that's like what they do best. But yeah, hopefully by now you'll be able to actually open the program. This is going to be a good time for a test. So put your ROM into the app, edit one of the characters in a small but noticeable way. So I'm editing right now and I feel like I didn't do a very good job explaining how to modify a sprite step by step. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. So what I did first was I pulled on the corner of the tab to make my tab bigger, and then I selected the magnifying tool to zoom in on the pixels, and then I scrolled down to the Nintendo logo. What I did next was I selected the paint tool, then I painted over the Nintendo logo just to modify a sprite. Once I was done, I just clicked File, Save As, and then I saved my ROM. It gives me an error message, so what I do just to be safe is I click File, Save All immediately after, and then usually that doesn't give you an error message, which means that your ROM should be saved. I then open the ROM that we just modified with a SNES emulator, and as you can see, once we open it, the Nintendo logo has been modified, meaning that this test is complete and we can continue with this process. Congrats, you've successfully modded an SNES ROM, and you can continue to modify the characters as much as you please. If it didn't work, then something must have gone wrong with saving. And if that's the case, then all I can say is try my saving method again or attempt a different saving method just to try to actually get the files to save. Make sure you're actually looking at the right sprite you modified. And then lastly, double check if you actually opened the correct ROM that you modified and not just one of the copies that you made. Now let's actually import our character into the game. Begin by opening one of your non-modified ROMs. We're gonna use this one as a workspace. It's going to be completely corrupted when we're done with it, but that's okay because we'll transfer all of our original work to another one of our ROM copies when we're done. Now you're going to have to change all of these colors in the sprite viewer. Now keep in mind, you're not actually choosing what color will show up on the sprites. This is just a viewer. So try to choose the colors that are most accurate to the ones in game. So for example, if I make this color blue, Bowser's face will not show up blue in game, it'll still be yellow. So make this color yellow in the program and so on. Now once we've changed all of the colors, next you can actually import your own sprite sheet. Scroll down to one of these sections that looks like a bunch of random pixels, click edit, and then apply to section. Find the sprite sheet you saved, select it, and now it should be in the program itself. So yeah, just place down your image into the ROM file. Now we're gonna transfer these sprites to the character which you wanna replace. First, choose the select tool, and then select the sprite that you wanna move. keep in mind you can't select anything you want. It has to be within the specific selection shape. So most of the time, your sprite won't actually align with the selection tool, but that's okay. Here's what I did. Select a sprite and make sure you select all of it. Copy and paste it, but don't place it down. Now use these tools up here to move your sprite so it fits into the selection tool as snugly as possible. Now that you're done, you can reselect the isolated sprite, move it up to the original ones, and now try to align it as well as possible with the original, and then click off the canvas to place it down. This is gonna take a while, it's gonna be tedious, but as long as you're patient, it should go fine. If you wanna test your work again, open up a blank copy of your ROM, one that we didn't destroy any data in, copy the sprite, and then paste it into the untampered ROM.
Now, save the clean ROM file and open the clean ROM file with your emulator.
You should be able to see the changes that you've made now. And that's pretty much the whole process. Just keep repeating this process over and over again, and you should be able to change all of the main sprites. This is gonna take a while. There are some sprites that have somewhat annoying placement, and there are some sprites that need to be symmetrical, so you only have to copy half of them. But again, just keep doing it over and over again. Just place down each sprite into the position that it needs to be in, and you should have a finished sprite sheet. One last thing you can do is actually change the Nintendo logo, because it's stored right here next to Luigi. So if you want, you can do that. And then when you're finished with that, just save your ROM, and that's it. All of the visuals should be done by now. You might need to troubleshoot if the graphics aren't displayed properly. Some issues could be sprite is positioned in the wrong place, or you altered compressed data in the ROM, and you're gonna need to transfer your sprites to a new ROM that doesn't have any altered compressed data. Make sure the ROM is as clean as possible. We just wanna edit these character sprites and nothing else. So one last thing I want to show you is that we can actually change the name of the driver. To do so, just open Epic Edit, select the finished ROM of your custom character, and then edit the driver's name using this tool. Make sure you use up all of the available characters. If you use less, the game's gonna crash. If you use more, you won't be able to because the game's not gonna let you use more. So just make sure you use the exact amount of characters you need. Now just save the ROM and everything should finally be complete. Yeah, that took a long time, but guess what? Now you've got your own custom Super Mario Kart character, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I hope this video helped if you're interested in doing this. The only reason why I made this video is because I couldn't find any tutorial like this on YouTube already, so I was like, you know what? Why not? I'll just make it myself. Hopefully everything went well in the process. Again, I am not a professional. I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing when I mod these games. If you have any issues with it, I'd highly recommend joining a Mario Kart modding Discord, but you can always leave a comment if you really do need help with something. Maybe someone who knows what they're doing will be able to respond. Maybe I'll be able to respond, probably not, but it's worth a shot if you want to. Anyways, I think that's it for this video. I hope it helped. Even though this was a very hard process for me, it was actually pretty fun. And the fact that we can actually modify these games like this is pretty cool. So yeah, I think this is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I hope you got something out of this. But yeah, thanks for watching, and goodbye.